There's no denying that there's been an increase in popularity among some of the most epic golf travel destinations in recent years. And we've been lucky enough to experience so many of them, whether it's going across the pond to Scotland or up to Nova Scotia. There are some real once-in-a-lifetime style trips, but there are also a few locations that are just tried and true. Golf locations like Golf Town, USA in Myrtle Beach. And it's another place we've experienced, but we wanted to get back there and experience it just a bit differently. We wanted a chance to see Myrtle Beach through a new lens, so to speak, and really discover not only some hidden gems, but the real diversity of the type of golf there, to put together an itinerary that might just spark a little bit more of your interest and reinvigorate that flame of golf travel, especially one that here for us is a bit more local and a little bit more attainable. So in a second, we're going to run through a recent itinerary we did, which, like I said, exactly that. It includes some hidden gems. It includes some real value courses, and it includes some real tough ones where you're going to want to bring your A game. But when you look at them as a whole, it is just one epic golf trip. So we're going to get through all of it. We're even going to talk about some of that off-course stuff of where to eat, where to stay. We've got it all nailed down for you. And before we do, of course, we want to thank this week's sponsor, Titleist. And guys, the holidays are here, and there's no better gift than the Titleist Pro V1 and Pro V1X golf balls. And with the personalization options that are out there, you can customize your golf balls with certain sayings, even something like a lucky number. So you can really dial in that gift and make it personal to the person you're giving it to. And no matter which you pick, the Pro V1 or the Pro V1X, you're always going to know that you're getting the best ball in the game for the golfer in your life. So head over to Titleist.com today, check them out, maybe even pick a few dozen up for yourself while you're there. Why not? You know, those gifts we give ourselves, those count as well. So make sure you check them out. Go to Titleist.com. So Mike, this is not our first trip to Myrtle Beach. We've been there before,
No,
right?
second time back. And you know what? It's you nailed it. Because when you think golf buddies trip, it's more than just the golf, right? It's where we staying, where we eating, where we partying, where we hanging, what are we doing, how we getting there, all that stuff.
Absolutely. And we had been able to be at Myrtle Beach before, we kind of learned some stuff from our first trip.
Sure.
We learned what we really liked, what we wanted to hit again, and we learned about some of the stuff that we wanted to do differently. So, you know, in our first trip, we hit what I would call really the highlights. We wanted to hit the biggest names in Myrtle Beach. And this time we said, there's a few of those highlights. It takes a while to get through them all because there's so many great golf courses.
Sure.
But we said, let's also try to hit a few that are maybe a little bit more off the beaten path and are those kind of hidden gems that we're all after. And we've had a little help along the way with that too, because a lot of you had suggested places that we needed to play. So we made sure to do it. So let's talk about our very first round. We kicked it off with a golf course that I think needs to be on everyone's radar. If you're going to go to Myrtle Beach, whether it's your first time or whether it's your 100th time making your way to Myrtle Beach, it's Pine Lakes. Specifically, the golf course there is called the Granddaddy. And there's a reason for it. It's because it's Myrtle Beach's very first golf course. So if you're like us, if you're into a little bit of history, then you do get that component too, because I think a big part of golf travel, at least for me, is not just the course, but it's the culture, it's the history that's around it. And when it comes to Myrtle Beach, you really don't get more history than the Granddaddy.
No, you don't. A lot of history happened there. And I think that's often overlooked because in the name, it's Pine Lakes Country Club. Right.
That's right.
So don't let that throw you. I mean, it threw us at first, but it's completely public. You could book a tee time right on their website. So that was cool. And regarding the history, I believe it is the founding spot of Sports Illustrated.
Yes.
The idea was dreamt up or discussed there way back when. And it even is home to, and we didn't even know this, but the Myrtle Beach Golf Hall of Fame.
Yes.
So
if you're into history at all, this one's got to be on your list. And the clubhouse, beautiful, historic
Gorgeous.
clubhouse. And behind there, you've got the plaques that indicate everyone who's been, initiated in the Hall of Fame. It's, before or after your round, you take just a little while to walk through there, maybe grab a drink and just kind of take it in. And the scenery, the landscaping is all awesome.
Or grab your mimosa.
Mimosa, exactly. It's because one very interesting, kind of very quirky, but whatever you want to call it, part of this golf course is that at the turn, they make everybody a free mimosa.
I love that. Love that touch.
Yeah.
Never seen that anywhere else.
Haven't either. But it kind of gives you to the flashback to the early days of golf there, and like
Yep.
you got the guy like in the suit and he's out there making mimosas, and you get a little bit of that historic touch. But let's talk about the real reason everybody comes there is to play golf.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that you can get in Myrtle Beach that you really can't get anywhere else out of the places that we've traveled is that you can kind of choose your own adventure in Myrtle Beach, whether you want to go the more expensive, kind of play the big name courses, or if you're looking for value, there's that as well. And I would put this as kind of straddling that line in such a great way would be the Pine Lakes and the Granddaddy, in that from a condition standpoint, place is in great, immaculate condition.
Sure was.
Had a very private club feel, like you mentioned in the name, if country club.
Yeah.
If they get that country club feel, like I said, you got the guy making mimosas at the turn. But on the same token, price wise, it was relatively affordable. We saw anywhere from, and it depends on when you travel and play and the time of day and the day of the week, but $70 to $90
right
for a
around
tee
mark.
time for 18 holes. Really, ultimately, it's not going to break the bank, because many of us, you save up for years to go on these golf trips because you're looking at $300 rounds, etc. Here you get a little bit of a break. Your wallet gets a break.
Your wallet gets a break, as well as the proximity to the airport. I love a golf course that is close in proximity, because a lot of times we're playing on travel day.
Yeah.
Right? We're not just flying in and just hanging out and then the next day is golf. We're getting right to the course. So proximity was big for that
Yeah.
one.
If you want to squeeze the most rounds out of your trip, you want to have that, be able to fly in the morning and get right to the golf course. And this is a perfect fit for that because it's right there. Additionally, because of its location, you don't get to see it, unfortunately, because of where the tree line and stuff like that is, but you can feel it, the fact that you are only maybe 300 yards from the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah.
So you get the sea breezes there, which A, come into play, but B, it's a cool, nice, kind of the climate there. It's really in a good spot. But again, you come there for the golf. So talking about the golf, I thought it was a great mix of very playable holes that had some strategy to them. We got this great advice coming off from the starter, being our first time playing it. The first hole is a short par 4 that really you can't get into trouble unless you pull it left because there's the water over there. But what he said was hit your 6-iron there off the tee.
Yep.
And it gives you a chance because the following hole number 2, is a long par 3. So it gives you one opportunity to hit whatever club you're going to hit there, and kind of as an extra warm up. So I think we both went 5 or 6-iron there. Just get in the fairway, get your green in regulation. It's kind of that gentle handshake if you play it smart. If you play it driver, there's a better chance you can pull it left into that water. But play it smart, get out there, get that first, hopefully birdie, maybe par, and then move on to some of the more challenging holes as you roll in. The course does beef up its challenge as you go.
No, it definitely does. And that's a good thing you mentioned that. The one downside is the fact that there's no driving range there, but I don't think it mattered for us. Like you said, that little tip we got just to do that. We were warming up. We were able to use the chipping green out there, the putting green, rolled some putts.
Yep.
It wasn't missed, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I thought it was great advice to say, especially without a range. Hit that club, that fairway finder, and you're going to be using it again in one hole after
Exactly.
that. But there was a lot of water in play out there. There were some very scoreable par 5s, especially if you kind of knew where to hit it, knew your lines. But there was nothing unfair about the golf course. If you're not a person who, if you're not that into things like blind shots, the good news is not many of them out there.
Right.
But there were some areas, like I said, hard runoffs from some of the greens into the water. There's a more chip shot. I don't remember the hole, but chip shot downhill par 3 there. We both managed to make it on the green, but do you remember it was like the water ran right up to the side, and the pin location was actually pretty tough, a little bit of an undulating green there. But there's a great mix of par 3s out on that golf course, and I think if you're looking for something that is like that combination of, it's going to be in immaculate shape, it's a fair price, and you get to experience something different in Myrtle Beach, playing the very first, now that there's 90 golf courses on the Grand Strand, the very first one, a little bit of your history buff in you comes out. I think it's the one you got to give a look to.
Yeah, I love it. And I think you said the word gentle handshake on that first hole. I feel like the whole round itself could be a great gentle handshake to your whole trip. It just sets the tone, because you don't want to get on a trip and then immediately get beaten up. by a
Right.
beast of a golf course.
Exactly.
And I think this is a perfect way, in my opinion. This itinerary was so good because we started it out there.
No doubt.
Yeah.
And then do you remember, where did we eat that night?
So that night we ended up going back to a favorite of ours. We went to the I think it's called the Hook and Barrel. And we it's funny, there was one thing on the menu that brought us back.
It might be the only restaurant I can remember where I came back because of an appetizer.
Because of an appetizer.
Yeah.
And it was candied bacon.
Yes.
And this, I think it was battered in something. Do you even remember? Was like a bourbon?
It
or
was like, yeah, it was like a bourbon or something, like a little
Syrup.
sweetness.
Yeah.
To
and
it.
There was just, it hangs on
Yes.
this.
And we
you
talk
just-
thick cut.
thick cut.
Yeah.
Almost like steak. Like you take it and then you just pull it off and you bite into it, and it's one of the most incredible things. And that's why we went back. The other food there was incredible too.
It was.
We got some great stuff. The pork chop, the braised short rib, like real stuff like that you're craving after a long day of just ripping calories. It's good stuff.
And I think that's the other cool thing. The food in Myrtle Beach a lot of ways echoes the golf in that you can kind of get whatever you want. If you want to go, and we wanted to like kind of celebrate getting back there in our first night, kick it off big, go to a place
That was our
it's
most upscale.
Yeah, a
food.
little bit higher
Yeah.
priced. It's also widely considered like one of the best restaurants in the entire.
It's always ranked
Myrtle
like one
Beach.
when you
Right.
Yelp or whatever down there.
So you have that, but then as we'll talk about as we get through this, there's also some much more, wallet friendly
Yeah.
spots that are just casual, great for a hang. There's a brewery I want to talk about in a second, but let's talk about our second day, our second round. So this is where we had the opportunity to play a golf course, and this is the one that I can't emphasize enough, how many people told us we had to play here. So about a year ago, we had gone to Myrtle Beach for the first time. And since that date, whenever, anybody who has approached us who had been to Myrtle Beach and known Myrtle Beach, and we get the chance in our travel to run into a lot of head pros and professionals. And because of how many golf courses there are in Myrtle Beach, it's actually surprising how many head pros have worked there at one time or another. Their their own personal journey has gone through Myrtle Beach, and they were a head pro here, there, or the other place.
Right.
And a lot of them were the ones who were giving us the advice that we had to play Thistle Golf Club.
Never
Now,
heard of it. Never
hadn't-
saying it.
Same. Had never heard of it. And it's funny enough, since we released that video on the main channel, many other people have weighed in saying the same thing. Thistle's a must play. It's a must play. You just that's the word that just keeps kind of getting attached to it. Interestingly, though, it's technically not in Myrtle Beach. In fact, it's across the border from South Carolina into North Carolina. However, proximity-wise, it's super close. In fact, where we were staying in North Myrtle Beach, it was only about a 25-minute drive.
Yeah.
It actually took longer to get to some of the ones like Pawleys Island golf courses and stuff like that, in other times that we've taken, which we consider more traditional Myrtle Beach. But this course, I cannot emphasize enough just how different of a feel it has. Like I said earlier, we had the great fortune of playing 10 golf courses in Scotland a few years ago. And this is a course that, although it's in North Carolina, it's got a true Scottish feel.
It sure does.
And it has a heritage that's based in, Scotland and bringing some of that over. But what's so great about it is you have 3 fantastic 9-hole routings there. So you can go back and play it and route, different 18s and play it in, different ways. And each one of those 9-hole routings is undergoing a massive restoration. And we got to play the Cameron 9 only a few days after it had reopened, and it was just fantastic what they had done with it.
Yeah, I mean, that was probably some of the most fun I've had on any Myrtle Beach golf trip. I mean, the course was great, but there was that Scottish flair. I mean, we even saw the pot bunkers with the walls.
Yeah, the stacked side bunkers, which you only really see, Links Golf in Scotland.
Absolutely. It's rare you ever see it on this side of the pond, and they did a great job bringing that character to life, and they went all the way from the course throughout the clubhouse there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an incredible spot.
And there is not a boring shot to be had out there, because the 18-hole routing we played, which was the Cameron and Stewart 9s, I am not exaggerating when I say quite literally water was in play on all 18 holes. So the routing just really masterfully routes its way around all of these water areas. And you even had, which hole was it? It was kind of like the signature on the Cameron, where it was almost an island green. It wasn't quite fully island. There was a little walking strip.
3 or 4.
Something like the third or fourth hole.
Yeah, it was like third or fourth hole, and it was
just gorgeous. What a shot. And especially the wind was kicking up, and the club selection comes into play. But it really boiled down to that every time. You were strategically having to plot your way through the golf course, and really depending on how aggressive or conservative you wanted to play was how much of the water you were trying to cut off or take on. There was also a absolutely fantastic par 5 that wrapped around in almost this U shape around the water, and it, as you stepped up to the tee, it just challenged you to take on what, as much as you wanted to cut off was as far as you were going to go, further and further right over this water. And with the wind in our face, it became unforgiving.
I donated a ball to
You
that
did
water.
donate a ball to, because a little bit of a fade on that, and it just becomes dead.
It's gone.
But really cool in that you got to see the entire layout of the hole, but just so much water coming into play there. So all the way making our way through that round, it just kind of reinforced what everyone had told us, which was that Thistle was a must play, and we got to experience that firsthand.
We did, and we played well. I mean, our scores were great. So for all that water, it was such a scoreable track. We had our moments, but we were able to get up and down. And even that signature hole you were talking about, I mean, you almost aced it, and then it rolled like 12 feet past the pin. And like you go from almost ace to a par, but no, you dropped that birdie.
Yeah.
And just like the celebrations we were having there, we were dropping birdies. We were just having so much fun at Thistle that, I mean, it was just a combination of all the aesthetically pleasing holes and the scoreability of that place.
Yeah.
It was so much fun, and I would totally go back, and I would even take on the routing we didn't play, or multiple different routings, since there's 3 nines.
I totally
Switch it
agree.
all up, but-
I think that there's always those kind of must plays that you play one time and then you put it in your pocket.
Right.
Right. I feel like this was a little different. I feel like if I was, I know there's a lot of guys out there who do a reoccurring trips, right? If there's an anchor for me, I think going forward it would be Thistle. I think I would be like, it's one of those ones like, hey guys, we're putting the itinerary together. We got to play Thistle, and then what other ones are we going to play?
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
I would put it on that list because it was just that good. And with the 3 9-hole routings, you can definitely play it differently. You can mix up which routings you're going to play. There's not a bad one out there. I will say though, if you want a real challenging shot, it was the final hole we played of the day, which was the 9th hole on Stewart, which it's this par 3 this green sits way elevated,
Yep.
and on all sides it runs off and down. So if you miss the green in almost any direction, even just missing the green by a little bit, it's going to catch the hill and roll all the way down to the water.
Yeah.
And it's a sight to see standing on that tee box. We cupped it way to the left away from the water on the right, which is the most slope. And we're just like, we're going to stay safe
Those
here.
are 2 great pars.
Because who wanted to ruin that? We were both had a good round going. Who wants to ruin that?
Right.
But
it's those holes like that, the ones that you pull the cell phones out, you're snapping photos of,
Yeah.
that help make a golf trip memorable. And that was one of those holes.
yeah, and it's just one of those locations too that's just purely just built for golfers. You had like the amazing huge clubhouse. They've got a great pub there that was just, even when we went, it was a midweek and it was just packed for lunch.
Packed.
It's funny, even I went in the bathroom
urinals.
and the urinals even have in their own individual TVs all playing the golf channel.
Smart.
And it just feels like it's like this is just fully made for golfers. You could tell the people who play who run the place are very passionate about it, and it's kind of funny. I think some of the comments we got in that video was like people getting a little upset that we were exposing their secrets. Like I think there's some people who would like to keep places like this a little tight to the chest.
Yeah, sorry.
But because it's just that good. But hey, sorry, but we got to share the wealth here. We were told to play it. It was too good. We had to go play it.
Totally. And as far as price, it was kind of middle of the pack. It wasn't anything that would break the bank, but it was definitely more than Pine Lakes. I just looked this morning. If you wanted to play this afternoon, here we are in November. We went in October. I think it was about $125.
Yep.
So, a little bit more than the 70 to 90 you'll get at Pine Lakes, but well worth it. Like I said, everything soup to nuts was great.
No doubt. And we got 2 more golf courses to cover. And I also want to talk about some of the other restaurants we hit, including a great brewery that everybody's got to go to.
And I got to talk about our lodging because it's without fail. We're always staying there.
100%.
Yeah, okay.
So before we do, let's do a break here. Let's do a quick word from our sponsors.
Just want to say a big thanks to FootJoy. They are definitely the leader in performance golf rainwear, and it's crazy because they have all the options you need for tough weather on the golf course. So they've got the DryJoy Select, which is the best of the best. Everyone wants a lightweight jacket they could just stuff in their golf bag. You always have it in there in case the unexpected happens. And they've gone as far as to add the Hydro Light X, the Hydro Tour, which is for the most extreme cool weather conditions. And then their hydro knit, which is like a mid layer. I mean, every layer that you can imagine, these guys have come up with.
Speaking of which, we wore it all on this trip.
Yeah, we did.
Right?
We did, because we were hit with everything.
Absolutely. We got a lot of wind that last day, a little bit of sprinkles. It's great to have some of the stuff in the bag.
Yeah,
no
so
doubt
you
about
guys
it.
have to definitely bulk up with it. Go pick up some of your own. Go to footjoy.com and just check out the whole lineup of outerwear over there. And lastly, of course, just got to thank Golf Zone Social. We got a big tournament coming up there. It's in West Nyack, New York, at the Palisades Mall. If you're in the tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, or Pennsylvania even, if you want to make the trip down, it might be worth it for you because it's going to be stacked with some amazing prizes, like almost a $2,000 stay-and-play prize for first place. And get this, you don't even have to be a great golfer to win it. So check it out. We will put the link in the description of this. Sign up, come down and play.
Here we are talking about golf trips, and you can win one.
And you can win one. Golfthecity.com/register.
Make sure you get registered because, like Mike said, even though it's a big place, spots will fill up quick.
They will.
All right. So, like I said, we want to tell you something about some of the food spots. So I can't keep you waiting on this one any longer. The one spot that was like an absolute go-to for us for that casual, just like vibe, everything, Crooked Hammock. It's a brewery, but they also had some really good barbecue.
Yeah.
And they had some nachos that were just unforgettable.
Unforgettable.
Piled so high.
Couldn't even finish them.
Yeah, but a great like outdoor seating vibe. Like it's got the cornhole there. They got stuff like that. So like it's just one of those places that if you're talking about like you're looking for like the opposite of what we were saying, where you have that like kind of like that more fancy dinner. This is more of like you just getting the crew together, gonna hang out for kind of celebrate the the round for the day, just grab some beers, and it's a brewery, so they brew their own beer there.
Yeah,
just a fantastic vibe.
I mean, you explained it perfectly. I mean, the night before we went from like what was it, a bourbon and a pork chop to a handcrafted beer and nachos
and barbecue.
And barbecue. Yeah. It's just a total.
It's like a get your hands dirty place. We got the paper towels like on the table type of thing.
And we were 2 nights into the trip already. We had a lot to laugh about that night. We were at 2 rounds under our belt.
Yep.
The jokes were already created. So there was a lot of fun that night. And just like you said, the vibe out there, people playing cornhole, and like there's all these little restaurants and stuff inside this. I think it was the Barefoot Landing actually.
I believe it was.
In there.
Yeah.
And there's a whole bunch of shops and stuff in there. So it's definitely the perfect spot to hang at night.
Yeah, and then they got the beer flights and all that. So if you're into beer, like the brewery, like you got it. So great way to finish out that day. The next day we headed down to True Blue. And True Blue, the reason why True Blue is on our list is we're big Strands guys. We're trying to make our way through playing all this Mike Strands golf courses. And if you don't know who Mike Strands is, he's a legendary course designer who really, unfortunately, we lost way too early to cancer. And he ended up designing, I think it was only 10 total golf courses, but all of his golf courses are just incredible. And he's considered one of the top, I think, 10 or 15 designers of all time, even though he's only done a handful of golf courses. Because just so unique.
So unique. And the one being on your hat is one of his most famed, Tobacco
That's true.
Road.
I didn't even think about it. Tobacco Road right there.
Exactly.
This shows you how big a Strands guys we are. But we had the opportunity last time we were there to play Caledonia. And it's just a incredible, unforgettable place. So like you would have with any Mike Strands. It's just not like something you're going to see anywhere else. The way the bunkering is, the challenge, the mixture of types of holes in these oddly shaped greens. It's just like you just get that understanding of like Mike Strands being like equal parts course designer, equal parts artist, so to speak. So with that taste in our mouth last time, we're like, well, we got to now go back and play True Blue, because True Blue and Caledonia are neighbors. They're literally across the street. And it's the only place you're going to get 2 Mike Strands courses that close together. In fact, we mentioned this and we put this out on Instagram of like, if you're looking for like a really great one day, knock your socks off itinerary, my best suggestion would be play True Blue in the morning. Because I'll tell you why in a second with the warm-up facilities that's there, and go across the street and play Caledonia. Not only will you have a chance to play 2 outrageously good golf courses, but you'll also knock 2 top 100 public golf courses off of your bucket list.
Yeah, it's a perfect day.
In one day.
It's a perfect day.
It is. So True Blue, out of the 2, True Blue is, I would almost call it the big brother. Whereas Caledonia sits on this kind of small piece of land, and it's a very shot maker's course. It's very tight. It's intimate. It's like you really feel like you're in a small spot. True Blue is different. It's vast. It's wide open. It's a much bigger piece of property. In fact, Caledonia is so small, they don't even have a driving range there. If you want to warm up at Caledonia, you have to go across the street to True Blue, where they have a fantastic practice facility, which is why I say start your day at True Blue warm up over there. So we hit the warm up facility. They've got other great perks there, like they've got the motorcycles you can rent.
That's a cool touch.
It's a really cool touch, and you can actually use that at either golf course. But what it boils down to when it comes to True Blue is it is every bit of Mike Strand's, massive waste areas, hugely interesting risk reward shots when it comes to strategy of what you want to take on, what you don't, and just some of the most interestingly shaped greens. And the reason why I love interestingly shaped greens is because it makes a lot of pinnable positions that dramatically change the hole.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of golf courses out there that are kind of cookie cutter and they've got the same circular green everywhere. And kind of no matter where you put the pin, you're kind of still aiming for the similar spots of the green. Well, this couldn't be any different. Right. You know, you're on the wrong tier or the wrong side of one of these greens, you might as well add 2 strokes to your score.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So it really made you think your way through that golf course.
Totally. And I think if it comes down to it, I mean, of this current itinerary we're telling you about, if there's ever a course where you're going to make the most spend in a pro shop, I think it's going to be at a True Blue and a Caledonia.
Yeah.
That's what you're saving your money for, because they're well known, you know, in the travel and the Myrtle Beach community as being some of the most elite there. But they're the ones you want to buy, you know, the hat or the pin flag or something like that. So, and they both have pretty incredible clubhouses.
Yeah.
Very similar in vibe, where they both have an outdoor patio that overlooks their 18th hole. We had 2 different experiences of the 18th hole when we played Caledonia versus True Blue. We'll talk about that in a second. But I love that both of those courses have that. And you're right, True Blue was just bigger, more expansive, where you had a par 5 to kick it off versus the 300-yard par 4 at Caledonia to start off.
Yes.
So they're different in their own regard, but they're both really sweet.
They really are. And it's like I said, it's interesting golf. It's a very adventurous golf.
Yeah.
And this is where we're kind of building that idea of looking at this holistically, not just as a course, but as a trip in general. Place like Pine Lakes and Thistle couldn't be any more different than True Blue. Like you're your third day. If you follow this itinerary, you're your third day into the trip, and you've already experiencing a completely different style of golf for the third time.
Yeah. Right.
You know, whereas you have a very traditional feel in Pine Lakes. Then you get over and you get this Scottish stacked side bunkers, water on every hole, linksy almost feel at Thistle. And now you come over to True Blue and you're experiencing this Mike Strand's very artistic, very quirky, but in a lot of ways, like just wildly interesting golf course.
Yeah.
For a great example would be that the first par 3, which is just surrounded by water, and the green is almost this hourglass shape where, depending on where they put that pin, it could be a 2 club difference. For us, they put the pin right in the middle in the most narrow spot, and it was so hard to get to.
Yeah.
But
a picture that a diagonal shaped hourglass, not even front to back or left to right.
Right.
All would be hard, but this incredible. Yeah.
Whether it was Caledonia or True Blue, I think the cool thing for us was that every time you stepped up to the tee box, you, in a very curious and excited way, were thinking, oh, what's this?
Yeah.
Oh, what do we got here?
Right.
It was never like, oh, okay, another par 4. No. Every hole had character.
There were moments in the main video, if you've seen it, where we have the camera rolling in the cart as we're pulling up the tee box. We're like, whoa,
yeah.
What is that bunker in front of that green? That wall bunker on that par 3? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Insane.
So whereas it's nowhere near as dialed up as Tobacco Road, I think that was where Strands took it to 11.
Yeah.
It's still very obviously Strands, and it's still very different than a lot of the other golf you've played. And I kind of wrap that one up by saying, like what Mike was mentioning before, kind of the culture of both places is where the patio is placed, where you can get a drink, and they both had really good spots to eat.
Yeah, we had a great lunch at True Blue.
True Blue and Caledonia, good spot to grab. We talk a lot about the food. It's like you might as well grab lunch there, one or the other, when you're there. But you can sit out there, and it's perfectly designed to have a perfect view of the 18th hole. Both the 18th at Caledonia as well as at True Blue are interesting, making for some very difficult approach shots. Mm-hmm. And what that does is it makes for some really interesting viewing as you watch the groups come up. And there's a lot of cheers or boos depending on if people hit that green or not.
A lot of nerves.
I will say it was a little bit more electric at Caledonia out of the 2.
It was.
And I think that's just because it's a little more intimate, smaller.
That too. But no, I think we played an early round at True Blue, and I don't think that the lunch crowd was yet to be on the patio.
Right.
When we were done.
They weren't quite as inebriated as the dinner crowd we
The
ran
dinner crowd
into.
of Caledonia, they were there for a while.
Yeah, they had a few drinks in them. But either course, you are not going to in any way be missing out on anything. If let's say you can't get a tee time at one, you grab the other.
Yeah.
It's a coin flip. There's going to be, I guarantee, if you play both courses with a bunch of people, there'll be a healthy debate about which one was better. And it seems to kind of get split 50-50.
Always, every time I ask. 50-50.
Exactly. So you know you're going to get a good one either way. But so in this itinerary, it was True Blue for us, but feel free to slot in Caledonia
and
there.
make it one more day.
There you go. And then kind of rounding out
And
our
the big
trip.
boy.
Yeah. So we had the opportunity last time we were in Myrtle Beach. You have Barefoot Resort. And at Barefoot Resort, they have 4 amazing golf courses designed by 4 different big name designers. And we had the opportunity to play the Love course, which is designed, of course, by Davis Love III. And it was a real fun routing. In fact, at one point you play a couple holes through and in and around some ruins of at this point they're fake ruins, but they're there to replicate what would be naturally there from some of the old mansions and houses that were out there. But it made for some interesting shots. I even got to poke one through a window.
That was one of the coolest shots ever.
Yeah. So there was really interesting stuff. But here within Barefoot, there's even a lot of diversity. But what you have is you've got a main clubhouse, and that serves 3 of the courses: the Love course, the Fazio course, and the Norman course.
Yep.
On the other side of the property is a whole different world and a whole different feel. You've got what I think is kind of the marquee course of Barefoot, which is the Die course. And it even has its own clubhouse. And there's a component of it, I believe, too, where you can become a member there. So it's got a little bit more of a private feel.
Yep.
But again, it's a public course. You can score tee time. You can play there. But it's all the elements that you would love about Pete Dye.
Yeah.
And it's right there in Myrtle Beach. You know what I'm saying?
Totally.
So like if you are a Dye fan, if you love the challenge of his shots, you love the characteristics of the railroad ties and things that he uses, then this one's, you got to put on your list.
Yeah, and if you guys are unfamiliar with golf course architecture, I mean, Pete Dye, he is responsible for creating TPC Sawgrass.
Yes.
The Ocean Course at Kiowa. Some of these courses you've seen on TV for these majors, and he's in charge. And we even have a Pete Dye here in New York, the Pound Ridge Golf Club, which we love so much. But it's tough to find one or get to him. And Myrtle Beach has a great one. It's just hard.
It's tough. And you know what? You mentioned we have not had the opportunity yet to play TPC Sawgrass, but I will tell you from knowing it so well on television and everything like that, the 18th at this Dye course is about as close as you're going to get to the 18th
No
at
doubt.
TPC Sawgrass. The layout is dramatically similar to it. Water runs up the entire left side from tee to green, and I mean to green, like right up next to
Par
it.
5 too, right? I believe
It's I believe it was a par
Like a
4.
long four.
Long four. But tough one. We did, as Mike had mentioned, we had the added challenge of playing it on a very windy day. And when I say very, I mean very.
Yeah.
We can't complain too much because we were fortunate enough that the hurricane missed us. However, while we were playing, it's when Hurricane Milton was hitting Florida just below us.
We caught the
And
remnants.
we were getting a little bit nervous if she made a little turn north that we weren't going to catch a flight home.
Right.
But we got to experience the wind, and it was bending flag sticks out there. And that made a tough course much harder.
It did. It definitely made it harder. But I mean, I think what I loved, and we didn't talk about lodging, but we stayed literally really close to this, right across the street at the North Beach Towers in North Myrtle Beach. And we stayed there. It's our second time in Myrtle, and it's our second time staying there because when we find something we like, as far as lodging and food, as you could tell, we kind of stick with that because that's the tough part. The golf is, we changed that up.
Yeah.
But this is great because it's right on the water, 3 and 4 bedroom condos. You can get 2 rooms. I think they were $200 a night. I mean, we're talking pretty good prices. And
Yeah.
if you could fit four guys in a condo with 4 bedrooms, you get 2 of those. If it's an 8-guy trip, you're right across the street from the Dye course. So I think it was a great way for us to kind of pack up and then head over across the street, play this course before heading to the airport.
Yes, location wise, it's like a 10 out of 10
Yeah.
because you're next to the Dye, you're right next to Barefoot, as you mentioned. Places like Tidewater were not far from there. You were a little little bit of a longer drive when you're going down south to like places like Caledonia and True
Hour in
Blue.
the car for that.
But you're talking about an hour. But again, centrally located because we were only 25 minutes. We wanted to dip up north to Thistle. So it's a great spot to stay, hands down. And you're just surrounded by restaurants there. You're
So
right on
many.
that main kind of strip. And there's any place that you can imagine to eat is there. But for us, I think the big ones is that Hook and Barrel is you pick your one night, whether you want to kick off the trip or maybe you finish up the trip with that really nice dinner. Hook and Barrel is the place for you. And then just kind of those middle of the trip, just kind of the hang night where everyone's just chilling, relaxing, having some beers. That Crooked Hammock is the place to be.
And if you want to take it a step further and bring that inner child out, you could stop at that sugar factory.
Oh my God, yeah.
It was just this enormous candy shop that was so lit up from the outside. We're driving home from dinner, like, we have to stop in there.
Yeah.
What is that place? And we got the most ridiculous ice cream sandwiches.
They had like to build your own ice cream sandwich. You could pick the 2 cookies and then any ice cream, and you made this
Make it too
ice cream
crazy.
sandwich the size of your head.
Yes.
Which
It was good times.
it was dangerous if I brought my kids in there. It would have been very
Yeah, that
dangerous.
wouldn't have been
It would have been
good.
very dangerous.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, like I said, I think the thing that it gets tough whether it's your first or 10th time traveling to Myrtle Beach is just saying like, where are we going to play?
Right. There's so much.
And I think as we've done more and more, we've learned like this trip was really designed to do a real mix and didn't feel like every day felt wildly different from the last one. We started off, like I said, with a ton of history, the value that you get, the great conditions that you get at Pine Lakes, moving over to that Thistle and just experiencing something like it's like nothing else in Myrtle Beach or really anything else in that part of the country. But just a gorgeous golf course. It was just so much fun to play. And then, of course, continuing our Strands journey with True Blue and being able to play a Strands golf course and then round that all out with a classic Pete Dye design, which Pete Dye is one of those few designers that you're very happy to allow him to beat you up for a bit. And that's exactly what that golf course will do. It can be punishing, but it can be fair if you can play the shots. You know what I mean?
That's it.
Play it, conserve, play in the right spots. Not as many blind shots as some other places that we've seen. So it was fair, but it was tough.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
Yeah, relatively flat too.
Yeah.
So they're not grueling walks or anything like that.
Right. So it will certainly not be our last time down to Myrtle Beach. So as we built a lot of this itinerary off of the suggestions from you guys, if there's some other place that we need to see and uncover, we will undoubtedly be back there. So drop those in the comments below. Let us know, and we'll continue to experience it and report back to you guys what we found in hopes that you guys get to take a little bit of that and apply it to your own trips and find some really unique and fun places to go. So make sure you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and we'll see you in the next one.